Okay, I'm going to show how I took the factory Ansen shifter out of a 64 Studebaker Daytona Hardtop with a T10 4-speed and replaced it with a Hurst Comp Plus shifter, but then kept the factory Ansen shifter lever so it all looks stock. So what you're going to see is a slideshow of some of the pictures I took while I did that conversion. So here's a picture of the factory T10 with the Ansen shifter on it. And as you can see, the Ansen is not a very beefy shifter. I was able to assemble this on the bench and get everything very tight. I used an NOS rebuild kit, and yet still I could not get the 2-3 upshift to be very crisp or very definite. And so this is what motivated me to go ahead and put the Comp Plus in. This is a copy of the installation instructions that came with the Comp Plus shifter that I purchased. It was a vintage original shifter. It was used, but this is the assembly installation paperwork that came with it. Also, the second graphic is the application, so you can see what different applications will work, because the shifter rods are different with each application. In this picture, the Comp Plus shifter is on the left and the Ansen is on the right. Again, you can see the difference in the beefiness of the two shifters. What I'm doing in this picture, you'll see the Comp Plus is on a piece of cardboard. What I did is I laid it on the cardboard, marked the 3 mounting holes for the shifter, put the lever in the neutral position, and then drew an outline of the shifter lever. I then took the Comp Plus off, put the Ansen shifter on, lined up the 3 mounting holes. Again, the Ansen shifter is in the neutral position, and drew an outline of that. And then that gave me the relative location of the 2 shifter arms back to the mounting holes. And you'll see that here in the next picture. Here you're looking at the cardboard that I used, and I've got Sharpie outlines of the 2 different shifters. The Comp Plus is the big S-shaped shifter, very wide, and the Ansen shifter is the very narrow straight piece. But what's important here is the 3 mounting points are in the same position, and you can see when they're both in neutral how each lever is relative to each other. And we're going to use this later to weld the Ansen lever onto the Hurst Comp Plus shifter. This shows the Comp Plus shifter in the car, and what I'm going to do here is take a Sharpie and mark the shifter lever arm flush with the floor, because I want to make sure that everything that I do fits underneath the factory shifter boot. So I'm going to take and move the shifter all the way forward, all the way rearward, and mark floor level on the shifter lever. That way I'll know the high point where to cut it, and everything will fit underneath the lever. Then once I've got the shifter out of the car, I'm marking front and rear on the shifter lever. So when I get everything apart and I've just got the lever arm in my hands, I don't accidentally weld things the wrong way. I get front and rear in the correct orientation. In the top of this picture, you can see the shifter arm going into the shifter assembly. And I got to decide how far down can I go inside the shifter and weld and not mess things up. So what I've done here is marked the shifter arm at the top of the shifter assembly, and I know that whatever modifications I do have to fall between that upper mark that I just made and the lower mark. So this way I don't do anything once the arm's out of the shifter that will interfere with the shifter mechanism itself. So I've disassembled the 2 shifters and pulled the arms out, and you can see on the Hurst shifter I've made 2 little marks in Sharpie towards the top up by the ball. That's where the Ansen shifter, if I lay them one on top of another, that's where it would lay in the same position as the Hurst. So I want to kind of aim the Ansen shifter to go through those 2 marks when I weld it into the base of the Hurst shifter. Here's a relative position of the 2 shifter arms laid on top of each other. You can see where the Ansen will lay on top of the Hurst and how that'll orient. So this is an approximate. We'll do some tacking before we weld everything together, but it gives you a pretty close idea of the relative position of the 2. So I've cut both shifter arms. I cut the Comp Plus shifter arm at the carpet line where I marked previous with the Sharpie. And then the Ansen, I've cut that at the bottom of that little rectangular pocket. And if you notice, that leaves me like a little saddle. I can then slip that over the Comp Plus shifter and kind of nest the two together. And you'll see that here in the next few pictures. But this gets the main pieces cut, and then I'm going to do some trimming. Here they are trimmed up. You can see I've put a notch in the base of the Comp Plus shifter arm, and then I've shortened up the saddle on the Ansen shifter. And then what I'll do is nest those two together. That gives me a lot of material next to each other. Then I'll go ahead and weld it. So that'll make it very strong for shifting. But the key was to get the layout correct, and then once I had that, make a notch and then be ready to weld it. Notice here how I've kept everything above the shifter mechanism, all the modifications above that and still below the carpet line, so when I put the shifter boot on, the factory shifter boot will lay flush. Now I'm putting the cutoff pieces back in place, and I'm just looking at the alignment to make sure I'm putting the Ansen shifter going through the same two Sharpie marks I had on the Comp Plus lever to make sure I've got the alignment correct. Once the alignment looked good, I went ahead and tacked it. I reassembled everything, put it in the car, checked the position before I did the final welding, but I didn't take any pictures of that. So here it is with the final welding. I did this with a MIG, really cranked the heat up. I did wrap the shifter lever with a wet rag so I wouldn't distort the chrome. I would do a tack and then cool it off and tack it again and cool it off. So once I welded all the way around both sides, I put the cutoff pieces of the Comp Plus back into position and checked my alignment again. And of course, in these pictures, it looks good. And then the last thing I did was to spray it with a little black paint, just so that it kind of hides me underneath the boot. You won't see it, and just to do a little bit of corrosion protection. And here's how the finished lever looks in the car. And you notice that it has a little offset towards the bottom, but in the neutral position, the lever arm does point straight up. And the shifter ball is about an inch higher than factory, and it fits very well. It doesn't come near the dash, doesn't come near the console, so it's a very nice fit. And here's the shifter in action going down the drag strip at Stanton during the pure stock muscle car drags. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.